a brilliant, successful businessman who can bring the kind of prosperity to America that he has brought here to Atlantic City. Is that your point? Now, what workers here are fighting for is to maintain the pensions that they were promised. I stand with those workers. What workers here are fighting for is to maintain the health care benefits that they have received for decades. When we talk about the decline of the American middle class and the increase in poverty, what we are talking about are workers right here who have seen their paid lunch breaks eliminated, who have seen a 35% cut in their total compensation, who have seen billionaires like Carl Icahn worth $21 billion come in here and attack the standard of living of dishwashers and maids. And we are going to tell the Carl Icahns of the world that that greed is not acceptable. That greed is destroying America, and you are looking at somebody who, if elected president, will take these people on. Not that it is any solace, not that it will make the situation here in Atlantic City any better, but I want to tell you that what's going on here is going on all over this country. Do we have people from the CWA here? Where's the CWA? All right. Oh, there they are. All right, what the CWA will tell you is they're out on strike now. They're out on strike because they don't want to see a cut in their health benefits. They don't want to see the loss of thousands of call center jobs leave this country being outsourced abroad. All the while the CEO of Verizon gets $18 million a year. Is that right? I just came back a week ago from Indiana. It's not just Verizon. It's not just casino workers here in Atlantic City. I was with the United Steelworkers in Indiana. You got a company there called United Technologies. They're throwing 2,100 workers out on the street in order to move to Mexico, where they're paying workers there $3 an hour. But a few years ago, they managed to have $171 million for a severance package for their former CEO. That is what we are seeing all over this country. The billionaire class, the icons, the Trumps, all of these people who want more and more. They're squeezing working people harder and harder. And we tell them now, we're going to tell them as loudly and as clearly as we can. Carl Icahn, Donald Trump, you guys are not going to get it all. We're going to change this economy. We're going to create an economy that works for dishwashers, that works for waiters and waitresses. Now, the reason that this campaign is doing as well as it has been doing, and we have now won over 45% of the pledged delegates. There are 9 more primaries and caucuses remaining. Tomorrow, one in West Virginia. We hope to win there. And then on June 7th, there is the big day because it's New Jersey and California. And if we can win here in New Jersey and win in California and win in some of the other states, and if we can win a majority of the pledged delegates, we're going to go into Philadelphia and the Democratic Convention and expect to come out with the Democratic nomination. So don't let anybody tell you this campaign is over. We're going to fight for the last vote we can find in New Jersey and California. This campaign is doing as well as it is taking on in every state the entire, or virtually the entire Democratic establishment, taking on the big money interests. Because we are doing something that is quite unusual in contemporary American politics. We are telling the truth. And the truth is, we have a rigged economy, and many of you are the victims of that rigged economy. Don't tell me that it makes any sense for Wall Street billionaires to be profiting while the working people of Atlantic City are suffering. That's wrong. Don't tell me that America is supposed to be a country where the top 1/10 of 1% now owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. Don't tell me America is supposed to be a nation in which the 20 wealthiest people now own more wealth than the bottom half of America, 150 million people. Don't tell me America is supposed to be the country where poverty in New Jersey today is the highest it has been in the last 50 years. Don't tell me that in New Jersey and throughout this country, but right here in New Jersey, median income should be 5% less than it was in 2009. And don't tell me that in this great country, 800,000 children here in New Jersey should be living in poverty. What this campaign is about and why I am running for president is that we are going together to create an economy that works for all of us and not just the 1%. And what this campaign is about is demanding that the American people think big, not small. Think beyond the options that you see on corporate television. Ask yourselves how it happens that in this great country, millions of our people are working longer hours for lower wages in Atlantic City and throughout this country. Ask why it is that in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, people in my state of Vermont, in New Jersey, all over this country, they're not working one job, they're working 2 jobs, they're working 3 jobs in order to bring in the income and the health care that they need. That is not what America should be about. We can do better. This campaign is listening to the working people of this country and not just wealthy campaign contributors. And this is what we hear. We hear that workers by the millions are telling me that they cannot make it on 10, 11 bucks an hour, that we have got to raise the minimum wage in this country to a living wage, $15 an hour. Women are telling me that they are tired of making 79 cents on the dollar compared to men. And I know that every man here will stand with the women in the fight for pay equity. The people here in Atlantic City are smart enough to know that while official unemployment nationally may be 5%, real unemployment is double that number. And that is why we need a massive federal jobs program to put our people back to work at decent wages. And when we have an infrastructure, our water systems, wastewater plants, our roads, our bridges, our rail system, our airports, our levees and dams, when in many parts of this country our infrastructure is crumbling, we can create millions, 13 million, decent paying jobs, rebuilding our infrastructure. That's what we've got to do. Healthcare, in my view, I know this may sound radical, but it's not. In my view, healthcare is a right of all people, not a privilege. Now, some of you know it and some of you don't, but we are living right now in the only major country on earth that does not guarantee health care to all people as a right. If elected president, we are going to change that. The Affordable Care Act has done some important things, but yet 29 million people still have zero health insurance. More people than that are underinsured with high deductibles and high copayments. And every person here is getting ripped off by the greed of the pharmaceutical industry. And what the drug companies are doing is no different than the Carl Icahns or the Donald Trumps. Their greed is causing people terrible suffering. You got one, if you can believe this, when you talk about crazy, crazy is when 1 out of 5 Americans get a prescription from their doctor, but they cannot afford to fill that prescription. That's crazy. What the hell do you go to the doctor for if you can't fill the prescription? Crazy is when you have elderly people here in Atlantic City or in my state cutting their pills in half because they cannot afford to buy the medicine they need. That's crazy. And crazy is, after all of that, if they're getting ripped off by the drug companies, the top 3 drug companies in this country made $45 billion in profit last year. That's crazy. Crazy and vulgarity is when we have senior citizens in the state of New Jersey and in Vermont and all across this country. Media doesn't talk about it, but this is the reality. We got millions of disabled veterans, seniors, people with disabilities who are trying to get by on $10,000, $11,000 a year Social Security. And you know what? You could do the arithmetic as well as I can. You cannot get by on $10,000, $11,000, $12,000 a year Social Security. And that is not the way you treat our veterans or our disabled veterans. Now, thinking outside of the box, challenging the status quo, You got almost all of my Republican colleagues in the U.S. Senate, they say, oh, well, that's too bad that so many people can't get by on limited Social Security. What we're going to do is cut it even further. That's true. So we got bad news for those Republicans. You're not going to continue to beat up on the elderly or the veterans. We are going to, not only are we not going to cut Social Security benefits, we are going to expand Social Security benefits. This campaign is about listening to our young people. And this campaign is about understanding that in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, which is what we are today, young people who go to college should not be forced to leave $30,000, $50,000, or $70,000 in debt. When we think outside of the status quo and outside of the box, we ask ourselves some pretty simple and obvious questions. How do we have the Carl icons of the world, people who are worth billions of dollars, why are they able to get even richer by squeezing and destroying the lives of working families? Not acceptable. And when we think outside of the box, we ask ourselves another simple question regarding our young people, and that is every person in this room knows how important education is. Everybody in America knows that's a kind of a no-brainer. We want our people, not just young people, we want all of our people to get the best education that they can. It's good for us as human beings, and it is good for America in a competitive global economy. Our job as a nation is to encourage people to get an education, not punish them for doing that. So when we talk about an economy that works for all of us and not just the 1%, a no-brainer is to say that in the year 2016, when we talk about public education, it must mean making public colleges and universities tuition-free. Now, I grew up in a family that didn't have a lot of money. My parents never went to college. And certainly that is true all over New Jersey and Vermont and all over America. You got kids whose parents never went to college, who are living in poverty or maybe lower middle class. The idea of them going to college, thinking about going to college, is literally not something that ever crosses their minds, like going to the moon. This is what I want to see, and I know what you want to see. I want to see every kid in New Jersey, in the 4th grade or in the 6th grade, every boy and girl understand that if he or she does well in school, takes school seriously, does their homework, regardless of their income, they will be able to get a higher education. People have criticized our campaign. They say, oh, Bernie, you're thinking too radically. Calm down. Think small. Now, we're not going to think small. We're going to think justice is what we're going to think about. And justice is not just making public colleges and universities tuition-free. It is dealing with the crisis of student debt. Anybody here have student debt? All right. All right, we're going to give people, the millions of people with student debt, the opportunity to refinance that debt at the lowest interest rates they can find. And then people say, oh my goodness, Bernie, this is an expensive proposition. You want to make public colleges and universities tuition free. You want to substantially lower student debt. How are you going to pay for that? I'll tell you how we're going to pay for it. Hey, Carl Icahn, you're going to help pay for it. Because we're going to say to the people on Wall Street who helped destroy our economy that they are going to pay a tax on Wall Street speculation. When Wall Street's greed and recklessness and illegal behavior helped to destroy our economy, the Congress, against my vote, helped bail them out. Well, let me say to the hedge fund managers, now it is your turn to help the middle class of this country. And when we talk about creating an economy for all people, there's an issue that we have got to address. It's not a sexy issue. TV doesn't talk about it at all. And you notice, generally, when I refer to television, the more important the issue is, the less it is on television, right? The more trivial it is, the more it is on television. So you can get a sense of what goes on. And one of the issues that we have got to deal with is our disastrous trade policies. We have lost millions of good-paying jobs because corporations have said, well, why do I want to pay workers in New Jersey 15, 20, 25 bucks an hour? I don't have to do that. I could shut down here, go to Mexico, pay people $3 an hour. I'm gone. Go to China, pay people $2 an hour. Well, we're going to put an end to that corporate greed as well. I mean, there is no end. There is no end. They are shutting down plants in America that are making a good profit simply because they can make a better profit exploiting people in China or Mexico. And we are telling them that is going to end. You're going to have to invest in America, not in China. This campaign is telling the wealthiest people in this country and the largest corporations that, yes, they are going to start paying their fair share of taxes. Right now, you have a tax system in which large multinational corporations can stash their profits in the Cayman Islands, Bermuda, and elsewhere, and at the end of a given year, pay zero in federal taxes. This campaign is listening to our brothers and sisters in the Latino community. And when we talk about justice, we are talking about the fact that there are 11 million undocumented people in this country, many of whom are being exploited today, because when you have no legal rights, your employer can cheat you, pay you any wages he wants, and you can't complain. And that impacts every worker in America. It is part of the race to the bottom, why people are working longer hours for low wages. And that is why I believe it is imperative that we pass comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship. And this campaign is listening to our brothers and sisters in the African American community. And what they are asking me, and I have seen this firsthand all over this country, they are asking me, how come we could spend trillions of dollars fighting a war in Iraq we never should have gotten into, but somehow we don't have the resources to rebuild inner cities throughout this country. I have been to Flint, Michigan, and talked to parents whose children are being poisoned by lead in the water. I have been to Detroit, Michigan, where their public school system is on the verge of collapse. I have been to Baltimore, Maryland, where tens of thousands of people are now addicted to drugs and heroin and don't know how to get the treatment they need to get off of that poison. So don't tell me that in this great country we should turn our backs on inner cities all over this country. We're going to put our kids to work rebuilding those inner cities, not put them in jail cells. Right now in America, to our shame, we have more people in jail than any other country on earth. You know that? We today have 2.2 million people behind bars. We're spending $80 billion a year locking up fellow Americans. Meanwhile, here is the pathway to prison. We have in inner cities and in rural areas unemployment rates for young people of 40 or 50%. I would rather invest in jobs and education for those kids rather than jails or incarceration. Yeah, I know it seems like a radical revolutionary idea, but imagine an America where we have the best educated population, not more people in jail. And when we talk about criminal justice, let me just say a few things. Number one, I find it interesting that recently Goldman Sachs, one of the largest financial institutions in this country, what can I tell you? All right. As you may know, last month they reached a settlement with the United States government for $5 billion. $5 billion. Now, why did they reach a settlement? The answer is because they were selling worthless packages of subprime mortgage loans. I'm getting to that. Give me a minute here. All right. So the first point, and I want you to think about this. You don't see this on TV, but it's important that you think about it. What does it mean that in the most powerful economic sector of our society, which is Wall Street, with incredible wealth and power, that virtually every major bank, not just Goldman Sachs, was deeply involved in fraudulent activities? And they've acknowledged it. Every one of these banks has made major settlements, reached major settlements with the federal government. What does it say about the greed in this country today, when the most important part of our economic system, Wall Street, is engaged in major acts of fraud? That's number one. Number two is the gentleman behind me whispered to my ear. Think about this for a second. Some kid in New Jersey today gets picked up with some marijuana. That kid will have a police record for the rest of his or her life. But if you are an executive on Wall Street making millions of dollars a year in compensation, and your illegal actions help destroy the lives of millions of people by bringing this country into the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression, you know what happens to you? No, that's wrong. You get an increase in your compensation package. So one of the goals of this campaign is, in fact, to bring justice back to a broken criminal justice system. This campaign is listening to a people whose pain is almost never heard, and that is the Native American community. Native American people have given this country so much, and the major lesson I think they have tried to teach us, maybe not successfully, is that as human beings, we are part of nature. We have got to live with nature. And if we continue to destroy nature, we are destroying the human species. And if we don't heed that lesson, brothers and sisters, there is not going to be much of a planet left for future generations. Which takes me to an issue that you have dealt with here. I am a member of the U.S. Senate Committee on the Environment. And in that capacity, I have had the opportunity to work with scientists all over our country and all over the world. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. The debate is over. Climate change is real. It is caused by human activity. Climate change is already causing devastating problems in this country and around the world. And if the scientists say anything today, what they are saying is, we underestimated the severity of the crisis and the speed in which climate change is impacting this planet. We have a moral responsibility to make sure that the planet we leave our children and our grandchildren is a healthy one and a habitable one. And here is just, you could talk about the Carl Icahns and the Trumps and what the billionaires do to Atlantic City. You could talk about the greed of the drug companies who make huge profits, but you're also looking at the greed of the fossil fuel industry who are more concerned about their short-term profits, if you can believe it. I mean, this is literally insane. More concerned about their short-term profits than they are about destroying this planet. And we say to them, sorry, that is not going to continue. We are going to transform this energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. And when we do that, and we move to weatherization of buildings and homes all over this country so that we're more energy efficient, when we rebuild our transportation system so that once again we have the best rail system in the world, when we do all of those things, we create millions of decent paying jobs and lead the world in saving the planet. And that's a pretty good thing to do. Now, I don't have to tell you too much about Donald Trump because you know more about him than most Americans. Okay. But in addition to all that he has done to the workers here in Atlantic City, he is not going to be elected President of the United States. And he's not going to be elected president because in every national poll that I have seen and in virtually every state poll that I have seen, Bernie Sanders beats him by double-digit numbers. But in addition to that, in addition to all of what he has done here in Atlantic City, in addition to his economic proposals, which call, if you can believe it, it's a part of the same greed. He wants to eliminate the estate tax, which will mean hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks for the top 0.3%. But somehow he just doesn't think that we could raise the minimum wage to above $7.25 an hour. But above and beyond all of that, the people of this country are not going to elect a president who every single day is attacking one group of Americans or another. They're not going to elect a president who insults Mexicans and Latinos, who insults Muslims and the entire Islamic religion all over the world, who insults women, who insults veterans, who insults the African American community. Some of you may have forgotten, please don't, but I don't want the American people to forget. Donald Trump was one of the leaders of the so-called birther movement. Remember that? And what that movement was about is a very ugly effort to delegitimize the presidency of the first African-American president of our country. You can agree or disagree with Obama all you want. That's called democracy. But you don't have the right to try to make him an illegitimate president. That is ugly, that is vicious. And the American people understand that our strength, this is really true, it's hard, but it is our strength. Our strength is our diversity. You know, my father came from Poland. Other people's fathers and mothers came from God knows where. That's what America is about, our diversity. And we are not going to allow the Trumps of the world to divide us up as to whether or not we were born in this country or we came from someplace else, whether we are black or white or Latino or Asian American or Native American, whether we are gay, whether we're straight. Our strength as a people is when we stand together, and standing together always trumps dividing us up. And the American people understand, they understand this very deeply, that in America we are strongest when we care about each other and when we support each other. This country dies morally and economically when we begin to think that each and every one of us is in it just alone. You can't do it alone. I need you to be there when my family is in trouble. You need me to be there when your family is in trouble. We are not going to allow children in this country to go hungry or veterans to sleep out on the street. Coming together to support each other always trumps selfishness. And the people of this country understand a very profound lesson that has been taught to us by every major religion on earth, whether it's Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, whatever the religion is. And that is that at the end of the day, love always trumps hatred. Now, I'm running for president because I reached the conclusion a year ago that it was just too late for establishment politics and establishment economics. That the problems facing this country, whether it is the problems we see here in Atlantic City or problems that exist in my state or all over this country, what we need now is a political revolution. We need to raise the minimum wage, not as Hillary Clinton wants, to $12 an hour. We need to raise it to $15 an hour. We need a president who has opposed every one of these disastrous trade agreements, not a president who has supported, like Hillary Clinton, almost every one of these trade agreements. We need a president who does not receive millions of dollars in campaign contributions from Wall Street. We need a president who's going to stand up to Wall Street and break these huge financial institutions up. We need a president not who voted for the war in Iraq, as Secretary Clinton did, but one who led the opposition to that disastrous war in Iraq. We need a president who says to the fossil fuel industry, we are going to impose a tax on carbon, not one who refuses to do that. And at a time when communities all over this country are struggling with clean drinking water, we need a president who says it is time to end fracking in this country. We are at a pivotal moment in American history, and that is that in many respects, we are moving toward an oligarchic form of society, both economically and politically. Do you understand what I mean by that? What I mean is that politically now, as a result of this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision, billionaires are able to buy elections. You get one vote, and the billionaires get one vote and the right to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on dishonest television ads. That is, when you have a political system in which big money can buy elections and put into office candidates whose main function in life is to represent the wealthy and the powerful, that is not democracy. We are going to overturn the Citizens United Supreme Court decision. Now, everybody knows that the history of America is that when real change takes place, and I mean real change, it never occurs from the top on down. It always occurs from the bottom on up. And I'm thinking right now, and I see our brothers and sisters in the trade union movement and Unite here, in the CWA and other trade unions right here. We understand, and I want you to think about this, 100+ years ago in this country, you had workers working 7 days a week, 12, 14 hours a day, no rights at all on the job. They could be fired arbitrarily. You had children working in factories, losing their fingers. You had kids working in fields and on farms. And what workers said didn't happen by accident. Workers by the millions stood up and they said, you know what? We are sick and tired of this exploitation of working people. We're going to form trade unions. And we thank the trade union movement for helping to create the middle class of this country. And by the way, if elected president, we are going to rebuild the trade union movement in this country. That's how change takes place. Workers said, I will not be treated as a beast of burden. I am a human being. Treat me with dignity. 100+ years ago, You had African Americans and their allies looking around them and saying, you know what? America will not continue to be a nation of racism and segregation and bigotry. And we are going to stand together. And believe me, if you think 100 years ago, in parts of this country, it was easy to stand up against racism and bigotry, you would be sorely mistaken. And we will never know how many people died or went to jail or were beaten in that struggle, but millions of people stood up and demanded that we end racism in America. People forget about change. Brothers and sisters, less than 100 years ago in America, women did not have the right to vote, did not have the right to get the education they wanted or the jobs they wanted, less than 100 years ago. But women stood up. They went on hunger strikes. They went to jail. And they said to the establishment, to the status quo, you will not define my life. You will not tell me that my only function is to stay home and have babies. I disagree. And women and their male allies said, in America, women will not be treated as second-class citizens. Think about the courage. Think about, we forget about it. You think it's easy? Women were defined by society and they broke those shackles. Think about the fact that if we were here 10 years ago, no time at all, somebody jumps up and says, you know, Bernie, I think that by the year 2015, gay marriage will be legal in 50 states in this country. The person next to the guy who said that would have said, you're crazy. There is too much bigotry in America. There's too much homophobia in America. It can't happen. But you know what happened? The gay community and their straight allies said, you know, in America, people should have the right to love whoever they want, regardless of their gender. When I grew up, gay people refused to even acknowledge that they were gay. The world has changed in a radical way because of the courage of people standing up and fighting back. Let me give you one last example of what I mean. If we were here 5 years ago, no time at all, and somebody jumps up and says, Bernie, you know, this federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour is a starvation wage. We have to raise it to $15 an hour. Somebody said that 5 years ago. A person next to her would have said, $15 an hour? You want to more than double the minimum wage? You're thinking too big. You're too radical. You're crazy. Maybe $9 an hour, maybe, who knows, if you're lucky, $10 an hour. $15 an hour, my God, what's the matter with you? Well, guess what happened? Workers in the fast food industry, McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, they went out on strike, and I'm proud to tell you I was out there on the picket lines with them. And they made the case to the American people, you can't live on $7.25 an hour. And then what happened a few years ago in Seattle, Washington, they raised the minimum wage there to $15 an hour. Los Angeles, San Francisco, $15. California, New York State, $15. So what seemed impossible 5 years ago is now taking place all over America. All over America, by the way, businesses. I was just in Vermont yesterday, and my daughter-in-law was telling me she knows a business, Subway, guys voluntarily raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And we're seeing that because once you get a movement, then people are embarrassed not to do the right thing. That is called revolutionary change. Now, where we are today is at that moment. At that moment where millions of people, and I've been all over this country from Maine to California, where people are beginning to look around them. And they ask questions that the media does not pose. They're asking the question, why is it that in this country we have more wealth and income inequality than any other major country on earth? Is it appropriate that we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country while we are seeing billionaires become much richer? Now that's a question that doesn't appear on ABC or CBS. But that is an issue that millions of people are now saying, you know what? That's wrong. That's not what America should be about. And then people are asking themselves, why is it? What is the economic reason why the middle class continues to decline, while almost all income and wealth goes to the 1%? Why is it? Why is it that we are the only major country on earth that does not guarantee paid family and medical leave? Why are we the only major country that doesn't guarantee health care to all as a right? Why is it that our young people are leaving school $30,000, $50,000 in debt? That's right. And you got the answer. It is the answer. Look, if we were a poor country, and there are poor countries all over the world, we would say, you know, it would be great if we can improve our infrastructure, if we can provide good education to all of our people. Wouldn't it be wonderful? What a dream if all of our people had health care as a right. But we're not a wealthy country. We're a very poor country. Brothers and sisters, we are not a poor country. We're the wealthiest country in the history of the world. So what this campaign is about is acknowledging, and I say this every day, no president, not Bernie Sanders or anybody else, can do it alone. We need a political revolution where millions of people stand up, fight back, and demand a government which represents all of us, not just a handful of wealthy campaign contributors. Now, on June 14th, there is going to be a very, very important Democratic primary here in New Jersey and in 4 other states around this country, including California. 17th, God, all right. Sorry. What? June 7th. 14 is Washington, D.C. All right, I'm sorry. June 7th, let's get it clear. All right. Yes. I don't want all of you going out voting on June 14th. It won't do us much good. See, after 40 primaries and caucuses, I get confused about the dates. All right. All right. So we are all agreed it's June 7th when you should come out and vote. All right, and are we all agreed that it is imperative that we bring out our friends and our co-workers and our brothers and our sisters? Now, if we can win here, this is the path to the White House. Right now, we've gotten about 45.5% of the pledged votes. The votes, pledged delegates, the people who are actually elected by people, as opposed to this thing called superdelegates. It is a narrow path, and we're going to have to do really well in the next states. But New Jersey and California are going to be the largest states yet voting. And if we do well here, If we do well here and if we do well in California, we think we have a good chance to win most, who knows what happens, but I think we got a good chance to win tomorrow in West Virginia and then in Kentucky and Oregon and then in a bunch of other states. But we're not going to be able to do that unless we have a, may I use the word, huge voter turnout. So, here is my hope. My hope is that on June 7th, don't get confused, like me, that on June 7th we have the highest voter turnout in New Jersey history for a Democratic primary. And if we do that, and if we can win here in New Jersey, win in California, and win in a number of the other states, it is possible for us to walk into the Philadelphia Convention with a majority of the pledged delegates. It is an uphill fight, but I have been used to uphill fights my entire life. And I want you all to know that this campaign will fight for every remaining vote in every remaining state. So let me just conclude by saying that here in New Jersey, we have the opportunity to lead this country into a very new direction, a direction that says that our government has got to work for all of us, not just the 1%, a direction which says that